This is the Meta 1 month overview reading for the month of September 2023. It's currently July 15th, 2023, 8:31 p.m. Eastern Time. Meta at the time of this reading in the extended hours was $309.30, that's USD. And the shuffle file for the Meta September reading was created on July 4th, 2023 at 7:20 p.m. Eastern Time. This video right here. So the overall theme and behavior for the month of September is out of a decline. There's a significant move from the bottom of a range to the top of a range. It's crossed with a big move higher, almost irrational move to the upside, reaching for a distant resistance. When we look at it from the 1 year standpoint, we have a peak or crest early on, and within close time proximity to this peak or crest, there's a notable trough. So the trough is probably here towards the end of the month in the midst of a lot of price change with this Ace of Swords, and we probably go decline from a peak or crest into a trough, and then maybe right around the cusp we move to the upside. Hard to say exactly, but there's a lot of price change there, and we should have the ability to position ourselves here in the end of September with the amount of price movement. We should be able to position ourselves to cash in on a long and a short position somewhere here around October, November with this highest high and trough correlator here. Behavior around the highest high for September, we have a rally along a diagonal trend line, breaking through horizontal resistance to meet a second resistance, and then pulling back to somewhere between those two price levels, revisiting a support level that was a past opportunity. Behavior around the lowest low, there's an important range on like a 1 year scale that'll be highlighted for Meta. And my sense is that somewhere here around September, maybe August, September, possibly the cusp of October, we're covering a gap. This stone here has connections. Something in May had connections here to a decline in August and September, and it was hard to determine at the time of the original reading, which was October 10th, 2022 at 2:06 p.m. Eastern Time. A long time ago, still being used today. In any case, it was hard to determine, but now it makes sense to me that we're likely going to fill that gap or come close to that gap here in August, and probably fill that gap around August, September, possibly the cusp of October. When we're looking for the highest high, what we're looking for is like this rally along a diagonal trend line, breaking through horizontal resistance. And there's this possible lowest low at the end of the month. There's a big move to a key resistance level here out of a trough. So we decline from a crest, a prominent crest or peak, into a trough, and then back to like a really like an important peak here on the cusp of September, October. Before we go any further, let's take a look at the June reading and see how we did. It looks like we had a highest high here, somewhere between the 8th, 9th, so we're off a couple days there, but then we go to from that highest high thus far into a lowest low for the month, ends up being on the 8th, and then we go into a highest high for the month again, ends up being on the 28th. So overall pattern, all right. We did have a sharp drop on the 7th. There's that unicursal energy on the 7th. Unicursal energy on the 15th. Looks like there was a sharp drop on the 16th. Even if you had caught like the top of the 15th, you still would have been all right. But it looks like there was a sharp drop there on the 16th. Matter of fact, where we have the lowest low ended up being a prominent trough, but not a lowest low. Lowest low ended up being this ruin here. Highest high towards the end of the month. Matter of fact, I think we do have the highest high there. Come to look at it a little closer. We were right on the ball, but any of those days you could consider highest high. So we did get the highest high, and then we had a sharp drop off of the highest high. Well, so it looks like 2 out of the 3 unicursals played out pretty well. So it's not going to happen every time, but definitely 2 of those unicursals played out pretty well. End of the month, this big move here was that lust card that we saw, and the lust card ended up being unicursal energy. We had this decline off of it the next 3 days. So overall, the Meta June reading's pretty solid. We were a little bit off on the timing of that first high, but that wasn't the highest high anyways. The highest high was here as predicted on the 28th. Alright guys, so this was a pretty tough reading to get highs for. I have a couple locations where we most likely have a lowest low, a couple locations where we most likely have a highest high. I don't think it's going to be both highest highs. I think probably what we do is we go from like this prominent peak or crest over here in the first week of September that ends up being the highest high for the majority of the month. We decline to a lowest low here around the cusp of the 11th, 12th, possibly the 13th, and then we either revisit that low on the 22nd or we see a low lower low here on the 22nd, followed by this big move to the upside, retracing a multi-day range from the bottom of a range to the top of a range. There should be a pretty big move here towards the end of the day on the 27th, possibly a highest high again on the 29th, but my sense is that we end up with like a higher price level early in October. Go from a crest to a trough, close time proximity to each other, and then a lot of price movement to the upside at the end of the month. Sorrow card here for October is the sneak preview card for October in the meta reading, so that there's going to be like a resistance level there. It's important, and a sharp drop. Let's get into the day by day. So on the first, we have a key technical resistance level that's highlighted. We should see volume kind of flatten out there. One local high, and by local high I mean on a 1-day chart for the first, we'll see one crest. On the 4th, we have no trading on the 4th. On the 5th, we have a peak where we go through a resistance level, we stay above it briefly, and we break back down through the same price level shortly thereafter. Most like the highest high for the majority of the month there on the 5th or the 6th. On the 6th, we have sideways rotation that ends with a fast sudden move higher, and there's a brief peak there from that fast sudden move higher, or somewhere around the 6th, 7th, a brief peak that's easily missed, followed by a decline through multiple support levels on the 7th into a trough. I think the fast sudden move higher is probably on the cusp of the 6th, 7th, and then we decline into a trough on the 8th, and there's sideways fluidity or price swings around the 8th, sideways kind of behavior going on. There's a significant amount of trade opportunities on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. We'll talk about that in more detail in the paid version. And if you're interested in getting the paid version, which is a really great way to support the channel. So what you get in the paid version is a lot of information that you don't get from the public version. We're talking about specific trade information. So what we're looking for as far as chart patterns for entry points around specific time frames, and what we're looking for chart patterns as far as exit points within specific time frames. And it gives you a good guidance system for placing trades throughout the month. You can read this stuff without the paid information, but some of the trades are going to be better than others, and we specify the best trades that we see. We also get into multi-month kind of time frame trades when relevant, as well as multi-year trades when relevant. It's a great way to support the channel. If you utilize the meta readings regularly, it's really the right thing to do. Without people supporting the channel with these subscriptions, the channel would not exist. So you go to our website, Tarot for Traders, our services tab, SO Meta Post, scroll down to monthly subscription, click on subscribe to Meta. Thank you very much for all those of you that go ahead and do that. If you're interested in subscribing to any of these other tickers here, I highly recommend subscribing to the 250 for all paid subscriptions, and you get paid information about the best trades that we see for all of the tickers in crypto that you see here. On the 11th, we have a decline, so it looks like we probably gap up over the weekend, and then there's a notable decline throughout the 11th into a trough on the cusp of the 11th, 12th, maybe the morning of the 12th. A period of volatility on the 12th ends with a fast sudden move higher and a peak or crest at the end of the day on the 12th. There's strong possibility of a lowest low here on the 11th. We either see a lowest low here on the 11th for the majority of the month, and then we revisit it here on the 22nd, or we see a significant low here on the 11th, a lower low here on the 22nd, but then in that case, this price level here would still probably be higher than whatever this trough is that we declined from on the 11th. On the 13th, we attempt to establish support. We probably revisit this low from the cusp of the 11th, 12th. We probably revisit it here on the 13th in an attempt to establish support on a multi-day scale. Sideways rotation, a trade opportunity on the 14th, an important crest or peak, and a cash out opportunity for a swing trade that we'll talk about in more detail in the paid version. A prominent crest or peak there, and then on the 15th, we declined to meet a support level that we recently met once before, and maybe the same support level that we saw on the 13th. There's a pretty juicy trade here on the 11th, 12th. I'm gonna highlight that in the paid version. In the paid version, guys, what you get are what to look for as far as entry and exit points, what to look for in chart behavior, and relative timing for entry and exit points to trades. We're not right all the time, but if you trade with this information and you trade responsibly, hedge yourself, cover yourself, pay attention to risk tolerance, so you should be pretty solid on profits overall. On the 18th, we have a notable move higher. There's actually a correlation here to the Lust card, and there's a notable rally here offering opportunity, peak or crest at the end of the day. Period of volatility on the 19th. We'll talk about that opportunity in more detail in the paid version. And then there's a period of volatility on the 19th and a sharp drop around early afternoon session that'll stand out in that period of volatility. opportunity. On the 20th, we have a crest or peak that we sell off from down to and through support. We do a U-shaped reversal below support, come back and reuse it as support. A bit of a pop to the upside after like reusing that support towards the cusp of the 20th, 21st. There's a pop higher to a peak or crest at the end of the day on the 21st, or on the cusp of the 21st, 22nd, and then a notable decline. What may be the lowest low, it's either the same low or it's a lower low here on the 22nd in like the late morning session. Notable reversal off of that with a move from the bottom of a range to the top of a range, and it looks like we probably gap up over the weekend into the 25th. A trade opportunity at a peak or crest and a failed attempt at breaking key resistance there on the 25th, followed by a decline through key support. On the 26th, we have a move higher through resistance. We stay above it briefly. We break back down through that same price level shortly thereafter. It creates a new local high on a multi-day scale, so not necessarily a highest high, but a prominent crest. And then we have the selling off of that crest into a trough on the 27th. From that trough on the 27th, we have a really big move to the upside towards the end of the day on the 27th, or the cusp of the 27th, 28th, or possibly even like a gap up on the morning of the 28th to a prominent crest or peak for the month. And then we sell off through multiple support levels on the 28th, but then rally higher on the 29th with another big move to the upside, reaching for distant resistance as highlighted by this yellow correlation to the less card. I mean, this should be a higher price level than wherever this decline is that we might possibly buy a long position in case we end up lower. We should still see a higher price level here on the 29th. Sneak preview for October. This sorrow card is highlighted in the 1 year in early October, so we're likely going to see an important resistance level that we poke through 3 times, followed by a sharp decline to a significant low. Like we're gonna cover this gap probably here. In any case, that rally on the 29th offers an opportunity that we'll talk about in more detail in the paid version. Guys, if you like this information, please follow the channel, and most importantly, the whole purpose of this channel, guys, I'm putting a ton of time and effort into this, so be one of the beautiful people out there following the rule of karma. You know who you are. Be that wonderful individual and follow the rule of karma. Give back to the channel, give forward to the universe. 5% of the profits should be donated forward to one of these charities here on our resources tab of our website, Tarot for Traders. 5% of the profits should be donated back to the channel here on one of these links. Thank you very much, my angel investors. Make sure to spend that 90% left over out of love. As long as you do that, the universe is going to send it back to you tenfold through this channel, my friends. I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay tuned if you got the paid version.